Thank you very much. You all, some of you are a little bit closer to my age may remember Adlai Stevenson's famous phrase, "Flattery is wonderful as long as you don't inhale." I did not inhale, but thank you very much for the kind welcome. And it's a genuine honor to receive this award. I just want to say to Sherrod, you and John had a lot of things in common. The one most critical thing is you have both had enormous integrity. That's why people respect you. That's why you're effective. And it's why it matters that you're where you are. And thank you for what you're doing. I really like John, but I love your mom. Your mother's become a great friend of mine, and we've been through a lot. I have nice remarks my staff made for me here, but I was thinking about John last night. I had the great honor, the Marine Corps does a sunset parade in the evenings here in Washington, and last night they did it at the, which is unusual because the usual parade ground was not available, Mr. Mayor. And they did it at the Lincoln Memorial. And it was magnificent, and it was dedicated to me. It was in my honor, which was a great, great honor. But I thought as I saw those young Marines, they were down by the reflecting pool, and you could not see them from where we were sitting. And as the band started to play and they came marching up, I thought of John. Maybe because I was going to be here today, I don't know, but I thought of John. And I thought of what is so desperately needed today in this country, and I would argue beyond our shores. We need a return to a sense of decency, optimism, and a sense of duty. As Sherrod quoted John by saying, something bigger than ourselves, realizing that not only salvation, but happiness is born out of a sense of purpose, doing something that is more consequential than any personal gain. John's life I'm not going to go through because I'm only going to speak about 10 minutes here or less. But John's life was a story about what I served for 25 years with John. I got to know your dad really well. We served in the same committees, same issues we shared. And I was telling you on the way in as we walked in, there were some pretty bleak times in those 25 years. And sometimes when everything was down, John would come by my office and we'd walk over for a vote, and he'd be smiling. I said, John, what the hell are you smiling about? No, I really mean it. And John said something to the effect, this country's too big, too strong, too consequential. We're going to make it through this. Whether it was a Nixon impeachment or whatever it was, he wasn't there at the beginning of that. And I think that if you were going to lay out in a non-political sense, what are the assets that we'd most want our political leaders to possess today, I think they would be a description of John. A sense of duty, genuine honor, a notion that America is unique. We're unique in all of human history in terms of government. America is an idea. America is not a constitution, particularly the way we set it up. It's an idea. You can't define an American based on race, ethnicity, creed, country of origin. You can't do it in America. Physically not possible to do that. But it is, you can define America based on the notion of what everybody, they wouldn't say it in these terms, but everybody sort of signs on, immigrants when they get here, to the notion of that we hold these truths self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, the first government in history to reference that the pursuit of happiness was a governmental goal. Never before has any country in any document talked about the pursuit of happiness. John got it. John believed, as I do, as Sherrod does, and you do, as his son, that ordinary people are capable of doing extraordinary things. Not a joke. It's not hyperbole. They're capable of doing extraordinary things, given half a chance. Sherrod, John, and I share something in common. I got in trouble for saying this years ago and repeat it to me all the time. The wealthy don't need government. They can take care of themselves. We want them to have everything. We want them to be protected and every right given to them. But it's the people who are struggling. All they're asking for is an even shot. No, I mean, really and truly, nothing else. Just give me a shot. My dad used to say when we moved from Scranton, my dad, if you listen to Barack, President Obama, you'd think I climbed out of a coal mine in Scranton with a lunch bucket in my hand. I'm very proud to be from Scranton, but I can't claim that my great-grandfather was a mining engineer, which was an unusual thing for an Irish Catholic in those days, to have graduated from college and be a mining engineer in Pennsylvania. But my dad was a white-collar worker in sales. When coal died, everything died. Like when steel died, everything died. So there was nothing to sell, nobody to sell to. So my dad moved down to where he had been raised. He was born in Baltimore and raised in Wilmington from 7th grade till his senior year when his dad worked for American Oil Company, got transferred to Scranton. And there was work down there. And my dad did fine. My dad was a very graceful, well-read man who didn't, his greatest regret is he never got to go to college. But my dad had an expression. The neighborhood I was raised in, like a lot of you, was when there was a recession, somebody lost their job at your dinner table or your neighbor. Somebody in the neighborhood lost their job. And my dad would commiserate the following way. He'd say, Joey, and he said this to all of I have three siblings. They heard him say it 20 times. A job is about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about your respect. It's about your place in the community. And he'd finish, and my word is abiding, I'm not exaggerating. He'd quote, the finish would be, and Joey, it's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it. And mean it. To me, that was John. Just give me a chance. Nothing I can't do. Nothing I can't do. I was raised in a household like a lot of you. I guess technically we were lower middle class in terms of our income, but we never thought of it that way. Lived in a safe neighborhood. Didn't have enough money to go to the exclusive schools that I got into. I remember my dad. I got a grant and aid to go to Amherst University, Amherst College. I wanted to go. I was a football player, and it was easy. Division III was a nice way to play. But I still needed money. I remember going down to see my dad, who ran an agency. And I asked the secretary, where is he? He said, he's out in the parking lot. My dad was wandering back and forth. I said, what's the matter, Dad? He said, Joey, I'm sorry. I'm so damn sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought something happened to me. This was before cell phones. I thought something happened to my mom or my sister or my two brothers. I said, what's the matter, Dad? He said, Joey, I went to the Farmers Bank, spoke to Charlie Delcher. They won't lend me the money, honey, to get you to school. I'm so ashamed. I'm so ashamed. What John understood, that few elected officials, even in good times, understand, is the worst thing in the world you can do to a parent is put them in a position where when their child has an opportunity or a problem, and there's nothing you can do about it. But if we had sound government policy, there's a lot you could do about it. So many people have been stripped of their dignity. And it's been exacerbated in a way that I never thought in all my years in public life I would see in America today. As David Brooks said, people listen to their leaders, good and bad. They listen. The reason I miss John so much right now, I honest to God believe, my word is abiding, I believe that we're in a battle for America's soul right now. For America's soul. Who are we? Who are we? Barack and I decided we would keep our powder dry and give the president a year to try to get on his feet. He didn't expect to win. He wasn't ready for the job. I don't think he was qualified or is qualified for the job. But give him a chance. But I couldn't remain silent anymore when I saw Nazis literally walking out of cornfields, carrying torches, chanting the same precise anti-Semitic bile that was chanted in the streets of Munich, Berlin, Hamburg, throughout Germany. The same exact bile, accompanied by white supremacists, ignorant people, given essentially a pass. They've always been there, but they never ever thought they could come out in the open since 1923. And then have the world's leader make a comparative assessment that there's good people in both groups, including the group that stood there to oppose them. We're in a battle for America's soul. I think the most important thing we can do, and I say this to Ohio State and people of Ohio who knew John, remember who John was. Remember who he was as a man. Forget his insight on policy for a moment. Who he was as a man. Why he was involved. And his enormous sense of duty, honor, country. We use those phrases so often, they almost come off as trite. But there's nothing trite about them. And so, Mr. President and Dean, this school matters. I got a chance to meet with some of your students, and so all the folks I got to meet with and talk to, stand up, please. Look at these kids. They are the reason why I am hopeful. They are the reason why we will get through this, Mr. President, because their generation is like where mine was when I was their age. I don't want to make you stand, I apologize. I was telling them, and I'll conclude with this. I graduated from high school, college, and law school in the 60s. And the vaulted generation of the 60s, people forget that the first 7, 8 years of the 60s, that entire generation of youth dropped out. Not joking, dropped out. Did not want to participate. Had to hate Asbury. Don't trust anybody over 30. That's not hyperbole. All the stuff about how active we weren't active. I was asked to be chairman of the Americans for Democratic Action when I was a junior in college at University of Delaware. And it was hard getting people. But then something happened. In my case, this was happening to these guys. Different set of circumstances, the same instinct. What happened with my generation, I only had 2 political heroes in my life. Martin Luther King, because I come from a segregated state and I was deeply involved as a kid from the time I was in 11th grade in the civil rights movement. I'm a practicing Catholic, but I spent more time in black churches on Sunday getting ready to go out and march to segregate movie theaters in Delaware. I was the only white employee in the east side of Wilmington in the projects for years. The other hero I had was Bobby Kennedy. I admired John Kennedy very much, but Bobby Kennedy I could associate with. I could picture him at my grandfather Finnegan's table and not being uncomfortable. And the day I graduated from law school, and I wasn't alone, I walked across that stage at Syracuse University to get my diploma. And my hero, Robert Kennedy, had been killed that morning. The de facto nominee of the Democratic Party. One of the greatest civil rights leaders in the history of the world, earlier in that spring. And I was determined, not a joke. I never thought of myself as president, vice president, senator. I thought of myself as the guy the governor would turn to and say, what do we do now? For real. But I was determined to get involved and change things. And it turned out I was one of tens of thousands who said, enough, enough, enough. You mentioned Kent State. A year later, 17 innocent kids on a campus on a beautiful day were gunned down and shot dead in your state. People said, no more. And we changed the nation. We brought, at least legislatively, the civil rights movement to fulfillment. Women began the genuine journey toward equality. The environment was no longer, when I ran in 1972, I was told I was environmentalist because I hated corporations. And the reason I was so strong on the women's movement was I must be gay. Not a joke. This was active discussion in that campaign. But we can change it. It's totally within our power. It's the last piece of John I want you to think about, in my view. His optimism, his understanding of the uniqueness of America. I spent more time with Xi Jinping than any world leader has. 25 and a half hours of private dinners, just he and I, each with an interpreter. We were in Chengdu, a town of 22 million people on the Tibetan plateau that was only 6 million 14 years ago or 18 years ago. And he turned to me and he said, can you define America for me? And I said, yes, I can. And I mean this. I said, I can do it in one word: possibilities. Uniqueness of America is we've always believed anything is possible. That's why we've been referred to as the ugly Americans. We think we can do anything. And there's nothing we've set our mind to, including John's space mission, that we haven't been able to do. So we got to remember who the hell we are. Presumptuous of me to say about your dad, but if we're here to say, remember who we are. Get up. Pick our head up. Understand the enormous capacity of this country. We're better positioned than any nation in the whole world to lead the world and grow. We have the most productive workers in the world, 3 times as productive as workers in Asia. That's not a knock on Asia. It's an expression of what we're capable of. People talk about China's going to eat our lunch. My God. I want China to succeed. Every time she would ask me, why you want us to succeed, I said, so we can sell you our products and you remain stable. He asked why I always talk about America being a Pacific power. I said, because we are a Pacific power, and that's why you've been able to grow. We've maintained stability in the Pacific, which he acknowledged. But it's about possibilities. When the hell have we ever asked questions like, well, you think we can do that? Can you imagine John saying, well, I don't know. I'm not sure we can beat cancer. I mean, do you think? What do you think? You think we, maybe. What do you think? Come on, man. We're energy independent. We will actually be the largest producer of any country in the world in 2022, including Russia. We're reliant on nobody for that. We have the greatest research universities, yours leading in the world. We have more great research universities in America than all the rest of the world combined. Not hyperbole. Fact. Fact. Because of a Republican named Eisenhower. When he came up with his committee of 20 wise men, he would not call it that today. And they recommended after Sputnik, we put billions of dollars into government research. He said, we'll do some of that, but give it to the land-grant colleges. Every major initiative that's been groundbreaking in the last 20 years has come out of a research university. Every one of them. Name me a life-changing product that's come out of any other country in the world that has China stamped on it, or Russia stamped on it, or England, or France, or Germany. God. Eric Schmidt asked me whether I'd help him try to convince the Congress to spend more money on pure research. So I've been going around with him. We were at a major function. We were on the stage, and I turned to him and I said, he didn't expect me to say, I said, Eric, tell him where you got the algorithm for Google. He kind of looked at me. He said, Stanford, and you paid for it. Not a joke. Not a joke. We're the most agile venture capitalists in the world. And we're the only major country in the world that has replacement workers. Only one, because of immigration. I'll conclude by saying, some may remember when I was to negotiate with the Congress and the Senate about the debt ceiling and about whether or not we're going to pay our debt. And the Republicans screwed around with it till we didn't get an agreement. We finally got one in August, but we got downgraded for the first time in our history. Government bonds were downgraded. So I was supposed to go to China to meet Xi Jinping, but to meet with President Hu first. And every single major financial publication bought a ticket on the plane. Not a joke, on Air Force Two. Landed, first stop was the Great Hall of the People. President Hu was very gracious, We sat before in the hall of the people, before there were two sets of chairs like this, about 30 or 40 people on one side and on the other side, and then a large audience, all his government people and all my government people from the embassy and the people I brought. And he sat there in those big overstuffed chairs you see us sit in when they do these things. And he said, "Mr. Vice President, we don't think America's finished. We think you still are viable. We think you'll be able to come back. But I have a question for you. Are our investments in America safe?" And I stood up in my chair so I could see everybody in the back, and I don't know, more press people than I've ever seen. I said, "Well, Mr. President, thank you for your concern. But it's never, ever, ever been a good bet to bet against America. It's a big mistake. But we appreciate your support." I said, "I've been reading lately, you've been criticized because we were downgraded," don't hold me to the exact date, we were downgraded on Thursday. On a Monday, you bought $9 billion worth of T-bills. I said, "Don't buy any more of our T-bills." Our political guys went, "Oh, Jesus, what's Biden doing?" But I meant it. I said, "It's true, you own 2% of all our financial instruments. The American public owns 87% of it. We've never defaulted. We're fine." And the other thing he added at the end of his comments, he said, "And I hope you're able to do something about your entitlement problem." And I said, "With regard to our entitlement problem, Mr. President, ours is a political problem and it's soluble. But my God, your problem, your one-child policy has produced a circumstance that by 2022, you have more people retired than working. My God, what are you going to do? If there's anything we can do to help." Not a joke. Those of you who are politically astute will remember that's when Romney went after me in the campaign for saying I did not criticize them for the morality of their one-child policy. Guys, this is America. This is John Glenn's country. John is America. Everything he stood for is what's made us who we are. It's not the example of our power. It's been the power of our example. It's allowed us to lead the world, create the greatest alliances in the history of mankind, which are now being shredded. So think John Glenn. As I told all of you, not a joke. Think about running. Not a joke. I was 26 years old when I ran my first time and got elected in the largest county in my state. And I got elected to the United States Senate when I was 29. And I'm the first United States Senator I ever knew. So folks, it's still wide open. I'm sorry to go on, but I just know, presumptuous me, I think I know what your father would be doing now. He'd be talking about who we are. So stand up, man. Pick your head up. Get involved. Get people out to vote. I don't care Democrat or Republican. Get them to vote for people with character and understand who we are. Because we are in a battle for the soul of America, and we will win it. Thank you.